Ben now. So as I mentioned, Ben Cook. We've known Ben for a while, actually. I think for about 2 or 3 years in a couple of different roles. Freddie Moore, obviously, and Ben is. I mean, he's been working in the digital space as a leader in digital for a while, and he really knows his stuff. So we're looking forward to this talk, and I hope you get as much value as we've got out of speaking to Ben and his team about this. So over to you, Ben. Do you want to share your screen?
I will indeed, mate. I will indeed. Thank you for that. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Nice to have the opportunity to present to you guys. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah,
I can see it. Yeah.
That's coming through. Cool. And we're in presentation mode.
We certainly are.
Happy days. All right. So as Paul said, I've known these guys for a wee while, and we're always chewing the fat on what's going on in the industry. And now this came around really as a bit of a catch up recently when I was chatting with Paul and Freddie, largely over a pint, around some customers that these guys were talking to where they had a situation that arose where they had customers that were just basically spending good money on advertising campaigns, through Google Shopping, but often, they were running out of inventory, and so there was a question that was asked, does Comestri as a platform, handle that in any way, shape, or form? And again, that got us thinking, because we often promote Comestri, as a platform that handles inventory, and then the promotion of things like product data, inventory, pricing, those sorts of things in sales and marketing channels, and one of those channels is Google and Google Shopping. So again, one of the things that we naturally do, really is and have the capability of is look at product data and inventory data, and then kind of where that's associated, we're able to then distill that into our Google Shopping channel, and then that starts to form what we then coin the term of as almost inventory controlled ad spend. And so out the birth of that kind of concept, I just wanted to have a bit of a chat with you today, really, about how we kind of handle that, why we see that as being important in the retail space for brands and retailers alike, where they want a good customer UX, they want to get the most bang for their buck from their ad spend, but also more importantly, how they get visibility of that inventory in the first place, and then how that can switch on and off, the ad spend that you have in Google Shopping in an automatic fashion. So just running through this deck, as Paul mentioned, I've been around this space for a wee while now, largely working with a lot of retailers, and joined Comestri about 18 months ago, and so when we think about inventory, and I guess what's our credibility to talk a little bit about inventory, we talk to a lot of retailers about the inventory they have across their whole distribution network. What we typically find is when people are selling online, they often have an area in their DC or an area in their warehouse where they put inventory into that space, and that's the inventory they sell online. Whereas our mission really is to get a much broader view of all inventory across their distribution network. So that could be from their own WMS, DCs, warehouse managements, or distribution centers, their own stores. We get store visibility of what that inventory looks like. And so when we consolidate all of that, we then have that as almost as an available to sell aspect that they then promote through their digital commerce channels. And those digital commerce channels obviously could be their e-commerce websites, as well as then the ad spend that they have within Google Shopping and beyond. So when we think about inventory, we want to get a broad brush view of that whole inventory ecosystem, so that we can get visibility of that. And if you think about fashion and apparel, footwear, those guys have lots of single units, lots of ones and twos that happen here, there, and everywhere. And again, if they've got inventory and they can promote that inventory, then they're going to be in a better space to sell that. And so what does that mean? It means that customers can find it easier, they can buy it online, it can be shipped to them, and they are starting to sell that stock no matter where it's located. And also means that if they've got these ones and twos sitting out in stores, they're not having to recall those, when they become sort of out of season. So so they minimize the distressed stock. So that's why we think inventory is important in the first place. So when you move to this concept of omni-channel and the omni-channel ecosystem, really it's around providing visibility of product information and inventory into online channels, and then really enabling that kind of ship from store, click and collect, omni-channel experience, regardless of where it comes from. We're also getting into lots of conversations now where we're also looking at suppliers inventory. So there are a lot of brands out there that may be a multi-brand provider, but actually, they won't carry all inventory for their products from their suppliers because they don't want the cost of holding their inventory. But actually now, this concept of dropship means that I can actually sell someone else's product online through my brand, and I could give them the opportunity to supply and fulfill that. So again, I'm boosting my inventory, I'm boosting my product count, and I'm boosting that through my own means. So when you bring that back into an omni-channel sense, that then says, well, how many of these guys are click and collect? If we're enabling click and collect, and we can do that through multiple channels. So click and collect isn't always just through my website, but it could also be, through Google local inventory ads. So again, we enable this concept of, I could say I've got 4 pairs of these shoes, and they're at the Brookvale store at Warringah Mall. And therefore, if I want to enable that click and collect option through Google local inventory ads, then my inventory count has to be true. Google analyze you for your inventory count to make sure it is true and accurate, and they'll give you a black mark if it's not, and that enables that whole click and collect component, not just through your own store, but also through Google Shopping. And then and then there's this concept of when they're in store. Obviously, they're the hope is they're going to buy more. And they get another customer experience, or they'll go into that kind of clienteling mode. So again, all of this is working to drive traffic towards selling more on behalf of retailers. So once you start promoting this whole concept of inventory, one of the challenges that a lot of retailers face is this concept of oversells, or it's become out of stock, or I've gone through a procurement process with my consumers have, and then suddenly it gets to the point where actually I can't fulfill that. What am I going to do? So again, when we think about that kind of buying experience, platforms like Comestri and some other tools go to minimize this concept of out of stocks, oversells, so that there's no kind of poor buying experience. And so when we start getting visibility, clarity, putting rules in place, some automation in place around how we consolidate and make visible both product data and inventory. And I thought it was quite interesting, and one of those things that one of the slides that Freddie just put up there, that Google Shopping is now allowing you to create product videos from product data. Means that the more product data you can put into Google Shopping, the better the experience that you have, the greater the search visibility that you have. And when you combine that with inventory and local inventory ads, then again, Google is there to enrich, that the user experience for your consumers. And so now I want to back that with the ad spend. And so how are we going to do that? And I was talking to some organizations recently, and they're like, yeah, but Google does have the capability to do this, right? You can go into your merchant console, and you can tick the button that says only promote product where I've got inventory. But the challenge that most retailers have is the updating of that information only really occurs at best once every 24 hours. So I therefore take a conservative view in that actually if I've only got 10 and they're in different stores, well, maybe I won't update inventory across all of my product data. And so Google has this concept, but again, it's the updating of that information so that you achieve a good customer experience. And so when you think about that customer journey, it means, well, I go to Google, I'm looking for my Monstera. Actually, they could probably come to my backyard. I've got tons of the stuff, but I've got this Monstera, and then I go through, I go into the Google Shopping environment, or to that page. It takes me to the site. I go to the site. It's in inventory. I've got it. I can add it to cart, I can go through a checkout process and place the order. Happy days. And again, if we're pushing that into a click and collect or a ship from store kind of aspect, it gets picked, it gets packed, right? Communication goes out to customer, or it gets shipped to customer, off it goes, delivery. Bang, done, happy days. But to do that, one, I've got to have inventory, I've got to make sure the product data's there, I've got to make sure that, you know, when someone's got that coin in their pocket looking for the product that they want, all of those things are coming together. That kind of, you know, retail utopia of right product in front of the right person at the right time when they've got coin in their pocket to buy it. So what do we not want to happen? And again, we see this quite a lot. We either can't find the product, or when I do find it, it actually tells me that, yeah, no, it's going to be in stock. But then when I go to the store, actually, I've now run out of stock, right? The inventory updates to my website are far faster than what I'm providing Google. And so there is this imbalance between what Google's telling the consumer and what the website has. Google deranks you, it starts to become a not so great experience for the customer. Again, they churn, they might provide you with a poor customer experience, they could be frustrated, you know, and worse still, they might head to a competitor and buy it from somewhere else. So again, you know, now I had the right product data, but you know, I didn't have the right inventory at the time when the consumer wanted to buy it. And so what we want to do is go through this concept of combining product information and inventory, and then pushing that into channels where I can then sell it. So we put a little video together here that just sort of says, you know, well, how does that come together? And it basically, you know, when you have access to both of those aspects, which is product data and inventory, you know, you can go through a process of using tools to integrate those two. And so therefore I can say, right, only send ads, right, out to Google where, as an example, I've got inventory. And, you know, I may still take a cautious approach. And so if I want to say, when a condition that says, when my inventory count is greater than 3, then say that it's in stock. And if it's less than 3, tell me it's out of stock. So again, I don't then force the consumer into this kind of, you know, oversell, overbuying position. So obviously, you know, you can make up those rules depending on what the nature is that you want. And so when we get to the point where, you know, that then features into and is pushed into the merchant center, what you'll see is, you know, I've got my product information here. Here's the title and what the pricing is, and then, you know, we've got this aspect of, you know, is it available? Is it in stock? And so if I'm continuously updating that, then I'm only ever promoting product, and my ad spend is only ever on the promotion of product where I've got inventory. So hopefully that's all kind of making sense. And so you know, when you go through this process of being able to consolidate product data and inventory and push those into the right channels, you know, and you want to enable that across your whole store network, so not just the inventory that I'm holding, you know, as part of my warehouse, you know, available for online, but my whole store network, then again, we can push that information. That information can be pushed to Google Shopping. It can be pushed to Google Local Inventory Ads. It starts to drive that traffic in store. We get more foot traffic in store. Nowadays, there's a lot of discussion around clienteling and the aspect of, you know, when you walk into the store, what else can I do for you as a customer? But also we're getting into the position where it's a good customer experience. We're preventing oversells, and we're building up our brand. Again, you know, it means that we have less distressed stock, less end of season stock, and again, my ad spend is, you know, true and accurate on products that I want to get rid of. You know, the ability to discount those products, update that pricing, push that pricing into Google as well. You know, all of those things are possible, and so you know, that allows us to, you know, start to sell end of season stuff and also promote that, you know, even though you know, that may not be in my specifically in my ecom warehouse. You know, in addition to that, we also can, you know, allow that ship from store functionality. So, you know, not only have I either driven people into store, but now I can actually, you know, I can fulfill that order from different stores, regardless of where that stock is. So, you know, coming to conclusion, you know, really the key takeaways in here are get your inventory, into a manner that where you've got complete visibility from an available to sell perspective. Consolidate that inventory across your whole fulfillment network, and or suppliers fulfillment network. So again, you now know what you've got to sell and when you've got to sell it. And then if you link that, with product data and your ad spend, and then use that ad spend for the promotion and to win that buyer's visibility, again, you can then move that stock. You can improve the customer experience. You allow customers to find your product, and again, you start to sell more. And for retailers and brands, that's exactly where they want to be, right? And that hopefully gives you a bit of an indication of how we work with organizations, how things can be achieved when you start looking at a platform to start to drive those aspects. And does that go into enough detail? Is that kind of where people are thinking? Any questions from the audience?
Thanks, Ben. That was a great overview of the product, and I mean, certainly from our side of things, we are used to dealing with a lot of e-commerce retailers. Oh, sorry, my camera's off. I mean, this product for us really kind of gets to the crux of solving a real problem that a lot of digital marketers have. So I just want to put it out there to find out if anyone's got any questions around this topic that we can answer.
And I guess to give you some bit of insight into where we often see customers. We have one customer, they're in the shoe space, and again the challenge that you have with shoes is that again it always comes down to the concept. I like the style, I like the color, but what sort of size have you got? And if you're me and you've got a massive feet and an odd shoe size, again trying to find the right size is always problematic, right? And so we had a shoe retailer, that was the classic, well, I've got stock, it sits in my warehouse, and that's the stock that I send online, right? And then we enabled this kind of ship from store concept, which then gave them visibility of their whole inventory across their whole 125 stores. Suddenly, all those little ones and twos and those units, I'm just waiting for Ben to walk in off the street, and be in the Westfield Centre, in the city, by Hope. Now, I'm actually able to sell that shoe to someone who's, in Geelong, for example. And they increased their online sales by about 40% because they were providing inventory through that process. They can promote that inventory, through channels like Google and Google Shopping. And again, that means the consumers can find that and they're starting to sell more. So, we're talking about, big growth in revenue numbers for online shopping. If you can get, wider view of your overall inventory.
Awesome. Freddie, did you have a question?
Yeah, of course. I suppose, I think, look, the conversation we had on that is really great, and I love the fact that you guys went from conversation to here's a problem that all customers have. I suppose I'll have the flip side is it possible for us to easily design basically can we limit ads based on where the inventory is? As of, I've got my warehouse in Melbourne that is full of stuff. My warehouse in Sydney is empty. Can we actually play from Comestri, dial up and down based on the feed?
Yeah. So when we bring information into Comestri, we do it at a very granular level. So again, if we're talking about the Melbourne, and Melbourne's a great example because until recently everything was in lockdown, right? So so suddenly all those stores needed to be turned into dark stores. So again, what that allowed us to do, was dial down the fulfillment out of Sydney because they still had lots of foot traffic in Sydney. But we could dial up the fulfillment out of Melbourne through all their dark stores, and they could still shift, inventory, and they could still shift product. And I think, if you then start to combine that with that concept of local inventory ads, again, it does mean that we're able to promote product, as being in a certain space, without going into too much detail. But it's that kind of thing that you can then start to do if as long as you've got the data available. And once we've got that data available, how we push that through those channels is exactly that.
I mean, this is massive in terms of, if anyone has the joy of speaking to a lot of CFOs or MDs, you realize that they'll give a tap on the back on saying, well done on selling plenty of very heavy and very heavy and low margin inventory. Now I've got to ship it from the other side of the country, and the loss I'm making on transport and shipping and fulfillment is greater than the margin. So for every item, and you think about those big giant batteries or anything like that, you're losing money if you're sending product from the wrong store. So those are the kind of things where we start to go at a level deeper and deeper, and this is becoming more and more important, I think, in this quarter, especially because everyone just woke up to e-commerce and they've gone, oh crap, we need to sell online. They're going to cut sales. They're going to go raise the margin, and you're going to. I think a lot of advertisers will now have conversations beyond just how many sales you made, but how much margin you actually made through those ads. And I think that's the difference between a winning store that can continue spending and someone that has to basically is running broke.
Yeah, look, well, Freddie, we got a customer now, and for anyone who's interested, I broke my neck mountain biking recently, about 3 weeks ago today, actually. But we've now got a customer in the mountain bike, where in the cycling space. They've got about 66 stores around the country. And one of the challenges they have, because of COVID and everyone's out on bikes, there is a drastic shortage of supply in the cycling industry at the moment, right? So these guys, have this challenge of, at the moment, it's a little bit on or off, right? So with bikes especially, they're heavy. So if they actually sell a bike, for a customer in WA, they have to, and that bike actually resides in Queensland, they have to get an engineer and a mechanic to sort of, to take the bike apart, put it in a box, and ship the box to WA, get another mechanic to put it together again, so they can bring the customer in store and have a bike fitting and sell it to them, because, that's how they're kind of regulated. And so, they have this issue of, it's costing me a fortune here, and I'm losing all my margin on bike sales. And so actually what they want from us is a rules engine that says, we've got inventory, but also I've got my courier contract. And so on that point, I then want to work out when the costs outweigh the benefit of, that kind of click and collect kind of concept of bringing customers into store, but before that, when they hit the checkout process, please, can you let me know, one, how much it's going to cost? Do I pass those costs on to the customer? Should it be available for click and collect in the first place? Is it available for ship from store against their entire product range? And so we're able to do that at the checkout process. And again, bring that forward a step, then they can start to define what that looks like from an ad spend perspective.
Awesome. We've got a few more questions here, Ben. Yeah. So one of them is from Nishant. So he's asking, how does Comestri integrate with existing CMS like Adobe Experience Manager or any inventory management systems? So, for example, do you need some kind of API access? How does that work?
Yeah, very good question, Nishant. Nearly all projects that we get involved in, our history and heritage as a business is in the integration space. Nearly all projects that we get involved in, have integration. So often, we're not just integrating to CMS systems like AEM, but also ERP systems, WMS systems, inventory management systems, and point of sale systems. We have API integration. We have flat file integration. There's rarely an aspect of integration that we don't kind of come across. So absolutely, I guess, is the answer to that. We are, and for us, when we have that conversation around inventory, it's quite a complex conversation, because it does get to, well, I've got store stock, I've got WMS stock, that's moving, right? I've then got online orders, they're moving. We've got orders in flight that need to be picked and packed. How do I reserve stock? How do I reserve for that order? Do I reserve at checkout time or when the order's placed? So there's lots of really good, interesting conversations around inventory on that basis. And so buffers and thresholds and those sorts of things can also come into play. And I think one of the other questions that we've got here is then around this concept of pre-order for out-of-stock items or low stock, or I'm waiting for stock to arrive. Again, there's lots of interesting things that we do with inventory. For example, there may be products where I can always get stock. So regardless of how many I've got, always send to Google, or in some instances, eBay or other channels, always tell them that there's 5 available, because I will always find stock regardless. So in that instance, we can always set that as a marker. If we can get visibility from the ERP that inventory is on its way, then again we can have that consumed within our platform, but we can also then start to flag that against the product to say this isn't currently in stock, but it is on back order and it will be available in 2 weeks. So again, the UX at the front end for the customer can also be driven based on the information that we store within the product.
Great answer. So do we have any more questions from anyone in the audience? No, it doesn't look like we've got any more questions. So Ben, thank you very much for taking the time out to produce this. I think timing is great on this one. I mean, we all know what's happening around the world at the moment and how crazy the e-commerce sector is going, and certainly we're seeing it with our clients as well, just the huge growth. So I think the topic that you've taken us through today is super relevant to many marketers. It's something that we're all kind of grappling with, is how do we advertise better? How do we advertise more effectively? And I think you've given us a really good foundation into that topic. I'm sure. Sorry, go ahead.
At this time of year, right, as well. I guess what's important for us is Click Frenzy, Black Friday, Cyber Monday are all coming up. November becomes a very hot month. A lot of pre-Christmas selling now is done. We noticed a massive shift last year. It started, I think, for us a year before in this country. People started to pre-buy Christmas presents in the month of November. But last year we saw a massive shift forward of that pre-Christmas spend. Almost to the point now where retailers aren't looking at their December sales in isolation, but they're now looking at their November, December, January sales as a period to actually work out, rather than just, great, we did awesome in November, but our December sales were down. They have to now look at that as a period. And, again, what does that mean? Fast moving sales, fast moving inventory, a lot of fast moving stock. They don't want to create a customer service nightmare by overselling.
Absolutely. So Ben, if anyone's got any questions on this topic, are they able to contact you?
It'd be rude of me to say no, wouldn't it? Absolutely. Hopefully my email address is still there on the front. You can find me pretty easily on LinkedIn. Feel free to contact me, however, and or even through yourselves. I mean, we work pretty closely, Paul and Freddie as well. So by all means, please get in touch.
Awesome.
Or if you find a retailer that you're trying to buy some stuff for online and you have a terrible experience, right? Just let me know who it is, and I'll hunt down who's responsible for it, and try and flog them a system.
Salesman, true salesman.
Totally.
Excellent. It's funny, actually, me and Freddie do that all the time whenever we come across bad user experiences or really crappy SEO or really crappy ads. We're hunting those people down and letting them know and trying to convert them to customers. Yeah, so it works. Good stuff.
My funny story on that, Paul, is when I was asking Carly from our marketing team there, we put these slides together. I was actually referring to another cycling organisation that in the online space, again, it was really frustrating because I'd just gone through this buying experience where, it says they've got it in stock on Google. I click on it and they always have the notify me when it's back in stock, notify me when it's back in stock. And so I was like, this is such a frustrating process. It drives me nuts. Anyway, lo and behold, about 2 weeks later, they contacted me completely out of the blue to go and talk to them. So I then had to explain to them that I was having this experience on site. And they were like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. And I said, well, how often do you update your inventory through your Google Ads? And they're like, once a week. And I was like, right, terrific. Well, there you go. There's your problem criteria right there.
Yeah, and it's amazing the amount of people that do that with manual feeds. And obviously Google does do checks. I can't remember what month it was last. It was either right at the start of this year, maybe it was April or May this year, where people were seeing a lot of John Smiths turn up on their in their analytics and in their data, and that was John Smith was Google's kind of commerce bot going out and scanning sites, checking availability, checking pricing. But we had a few clients that got hit by it actually because there were slight differentiations in pricing, not on the campaigns we were managing, of course. But yeah, they do check that stuff. They check the stock availability, they check the pricing. Even with one client, I mean, that differential between including GST in the ad and not having the GST on the website, that's caused them a headache. So it can be tricky, especially if you're managing a huge amount of inventory. I mean, some of the clients that we're dealing with are dealing with tens of thousands of items. So it can be a tricky one to get right for certain. So I think
exactly right there, Nishant. We see it all the time, especially the local inventory ads as well. They again, they literally have people that will go into store and just check, and they'll audit. They'll do kind of random, almost random audits on your store counts just to make sure that you're providing true and accurate data online.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Well, once again, Ben, thank you very much for taking the time out. And everyone, you can see Ben's email there if you've got questions. As you can see today, he really knows his stuff on this topic. So shoot him an email, and I'm sure he'd love to speak to you. All right. Good stuff, everyone. Thank you very much. For people who joined late, this will be sent round as usual as a video. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.